What up, wise guys? It's your wise girl Alicia, and today we're talking about suicide prevention. Before we get into this topic, I want to give a trigger warning, because today we're talking about suicide and how to prevent it. This topic is complicated and tragic, but it's important that we talk about it because it can be prevented. And so once again, I ask that if anything in this video is upsetting to you, please pause the video, focus on yourself, and practice some self-care. You can always come back to this video at another time. And although this topic it's difficult to talk about, it's really important that we have this conversation so that we can all learn how to prevent it and take care of ourselves and take care of the ones that we love. And with that being said, I also want to say that if you or if someone you know is in crisis, there are resources to help. You can always call or text the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You can call them at 1-800-273-8255. Or you can text HELLO to 741-741. Both of these services are free and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And best of all, it's all confidential. And also, if you're worried about a friend's social media updates, you can always contact the social media provider directly, or you can call 911 in an emergency. Of course, I will leave a link to all of these resources in the description. In many of our Wise Guys lessons, we learn how to build and work on healthy relationships and healthy friendships. And so in this lesson, I wanted to go over warning signs and action steps you can take so we can be there for the relationships that we care about. And so first, let's go over some signs and symptoms to keep an eye out for. The first sign or symptom to take note of are threats. Threats can be direct statements like someone saying, "I want to die," or "I'm going to kill myself." But threats can also be indirect statements like "the world would be better off without me," or "nobody will miss me if I'm gone." Now, I know it's a pretty common trend to make these jokes or comments either in person or especially on social media, particularly on TikTok. But these sorts of statements should always be taken seriously. And I know that you don't want to come off as that friend who's like too uptight and wants to call people out if they're just trying to get a laugh. But statements like these have to be taken seriously because those jokes or comments might be someone's cry for help, and they're trying to gauge if people are going to care or not. So what do you do if you see a friend making those jokes or you see a TikTok of someone saying something like that? The best thing you can do is tell that person directly. You could say something like, "Hey, I take suicide really seriously, and those sorts of comments really worry me. And I just want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly because I want to understand what you're going through." This ensures that you're looking out for them and that you're caring for them, especially if it is a cry for help. And if it really is just a joke or a comment, it sets a boundary that you're uncomfortable with those jokes because you care about your friends and your loved ones. There are a few other warning signs that you should keep an eye out for, like suicide notes. These are a very real and serious sign of danger and should always be taken seriously. If someone has attempted suicide in the past, they are more likely to attempt again. Be very observant of any friends who have attempted suicide before, especially those who have recently attempted suicide. When symptoms of depression include strong feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, a child or a young person is at greater risk for suicide. Watch out for behaviors, comments, or posts that indicate if your friend is feeling overwhelmed by sadness or has pessimistic views about their future. There's also masked depression. Sometimes risk-taking behaviors can look like aggression, gunplay, and alcohol and substance abuse. And while your friend might not act depressed, their behavior can suggest that they don't care very much about their own safety. There's also making final arrangements. This warning sign can take many forms. It might be saying goodbye to friends and family, but it might also look like someone's deleting profiles, posts, or comments online. Self-injury behaviors are also warning signs for suicide. Common self-destructive behaviors could be something like running into traffic, jumping from high places, or scratching, cutting, or marking on the body. Another important one to look out for is the inability to concentrate or to think clearly. If a friend is going through tough times, this may be indicated by their classroom behavior, homework habits, their academic performance, household chores, or even in conversation. If they start skipping class, getting bad grades, acting up in class, performing poorly on chores, or even talking in a way that might suggest that they're having trouble concentrating, these might be signs of stress and signs of suicide. Also keep an eye out for dramatic changes. Parents, teachers, and friends are often the best observers of sudden changes in suicidal students. Changes can include withdrawing from friends and family, skipping school, becoming less involved in activities that they used to really love to do, avoiding others, having a hard time sleeping or they're sleeping too much, a sudden weight gain or weight loss, if they've suddenly become disinterested in hygiene or their personal appearance, or even there can be sudden unexplained happiness, especially after a prolonged period of sadness. These can all also be suicide warnings. The last warning sign I want to go over is about plans, method, or access. Someone might show a sudden interest in guns or seem to have increased access to something like guns or pills, and or they might talk about having a suicide plan. The greater the planning, the greater the potential for suicide. If any of these warning signs apply to you or to someone you know, get help as soon as possible, particularly if the behavior is new or increased recently. So now that we know and we've gone over some of the warning signs, what are some things we can do if we see that someone that we love is in emotional pain? The first step you've already done. It's to know the warning signs. I'll even leave a link to the National Association for School Psychologists website on tips for preventing suicide. So you could print them off or you could always screenshot it so you always have it on your phone. The second action step is don't be afraid to talk to your friends. Listen to their feelings and make sure that they know how important they are to you. But don't believe that you can keep them from hurting themselves on your own. Preventing suicide will require adults' help. The next action step is to make no deals. Never keep a friend's suicidal plans or thoughts a secret. You cannot promise that you won't tell, because the fourth action step is to find a trusted adult. Talk to your parent, your friend's parent, your school counselor, any trusted adult. Don't wait. Don't be afraid that adults might not believe you or might not take you seriously. Keep talking until someone listens. Even if you're not sure if your friend's suicidal or not, talk to somebody. This is definitely the time to stay safe and not sorry. But if we think about a lot of the warning signs and action steps we just went over, a lot of those all take place in person. You have a personal one-on-one interaction with them. And we know that so much of our lives now are online, either with gaming, social media, anything. We interact with a lot more different people, and we don't always see their face. We might not even know what they look like. And because of that barrier, it can sometimes be harder to see warning signs and recognize a change in behavior if we always interact with them through a screen. But we know that people make legitimate friendships online, so how do we help out those relationships? Well, here are some potential warning signs that someone is thinking about suicide that might show up online. If they're posting a lot of content about feeling depressed or feeling hopeless, they could be posting comments about death and about feeling that death is the only option. Comments about attempting suicide in the past. If someone is posting photos about self-harm or they're telling people and identifying as suicidal. Or even if you've noticed if the mood or the content of their posts has changed dramatically. If you know the account owner, then you could always reach out to them and check in with them and encourage them to seek dedicated services that are there to help for free. On the other hand, if you don't know the account personally, you can still reach out to them and let them know that you're concerned. However, if you're uncomfortable doing that, or if it's a large account that you feel might not see your DM, you can always alert the social media platforms. All of these platforms, every single one, has a way to report self-harm or suicidal posts. When those posts are reported, the platform contacts the original poster to let them know that someone is looking out for them and that someone is worried that they are at risk of harm. They also then encourage OP to seek support and provide information about online and hotline resources to help. It's important to remember that suicide does not discriminate. People of all genders, ages, ethnicities, and abilities are at risk for suicide. This behavior is complex and there's no single cause for it. However, there are many warning signs we can look out for, so we can help our friends and those we care about if they're in emotional pain. Suicide is preventable, and it takes all of us to be there for each other, in person and online. And so with that, I'm going to end the video here. Our question of the day is, what's something you learned today? Leave the answer down below.